If I were to ask you what you did, would you find it easy to speak about what you did for your 9 to 5? And do you find yourself stammering and clamoring for words to describe what you do for your business? If that's you, let's have a chat. So imposter syndrome shows up in so many different ways. And one of those is that difficulty in promoting what you do as a business whilst you're working a 9 to 5. Self-doubt can set in when you're straddling two roles. And one of the things we do is we use the terms, oh, we've got our small business, or that's our side hustle. And yes, in startup, your business is small and it may start off as a side hustle. But I've got to tell you that I've got a little bit of an issue with the word side hustle when it comes to something that you want to grow into a proper business to be reckoned with. So think about what the side is. And this can go for many different things. If you've got something on the side, that's not where your focus goes. The focus goes on the mains. So if you are building a business and you're referring to it as a small business, or the business that you want to take forward, you're referring to it as a side hustle, it will always be a side hustle. Energy flows where focus goes. So you know that your 9 to 5 is your main source of income. But if you really want to grow what is your side or small business, you have to look at it as the mains. If your energy is only going onto your 9 to 5, that's the one that's going to keep growing. That's the one that you're going to be looking at. Should I go for this promotion? Or what should I do to grow here? How am I being perceived in this position? But if you want to grow what is your side hustle or small business into something substantial, you have to put the energy and focus into that so it can also grow. And we allow ourselves to wallow and spend too much time within that frame of being an imposter and allowing imposter syndrome to set in when we allow and accommodate those conversations that start with, how's your little business going? And then we start seeing it as the little business, that thing on the side. And we already have our doubts, we already have our fears, but then we start internalizing it because of what other people are saying about that little business and whether or not it's going to grow. And we allow it to stay stagnant. Because one of the main things that comes out of imposter syndrome is that self-doubt. So when people are referring to it as your little business, we start thinking, well, I should be further by now. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe the success that I think I should have had, I haven't had because I'm not deserving of it. And sometimes that self-doubt steps in solely because you are literally straddling two roles. You have a 9 to 5 as an employee, which most people see as that's the normal route to follow. And then you have this other role where you're supposed to be a business owner. And when you're straddling those two roles, sometimes it's difficult to explain to people how, yes, on the one hand, you have to answer to someone, but on the other hand, you are the boss. And then you find yourself trying to explain things that really require no explanation because they're not going to understand it, because your business is growing and all businesses need that space to grow. They will be the first people to tell you, make sure you don't leave your 9 to 5 until your business is fully on the ground and operational. But then they will be the same people who will say to you, what, you're still doing that? How come it hasn't moved along yet? And so what that does is it makes us stop speaking about it. And number two, sometimes we avoid being visible in our business. And if we're not speaking about our business, like, how is it meant to grow? Avoiding that visibility looks like not attending networking opportunities, not speaking to people about your business and making those connections that can help you grow and expand and work with like-minded people. All because you've convinced yourself that you're either not ready yet or haven't gone far enough along as you should be. And that's another thing. It's the shoulding. I should be further along. I should have done more by now. And that shoulding is usually where we're comparing ourselves to other people. But sometimes we speak about the only person that I'm going to compare myself is to me. But sometimes we should on ourselves with ourselves because we're telling ourselves that, oh, you should be further along than you are. And sometimes we're not even comparing ourselves to other people, but we're not looking at all of the obstacles that we've had to go through. We're not looking at the journey that we've gone through and how far we've come. All we're looking at is where are we now? Where should we be? And you're not where you should be. And there's a book that I read not too long ago. It was called, I think, The Gap and the Gain. It's a really good book for you to read if you want to get into the headspace of, and in anything in terms of business or different aspects of your life, if you are comparing yourself to where you think you should be or where other people are. And what we do a lot of the times is, when it talks about the gap and the gain, is we're only looking at where our so-called deficiencies are. We're looking at the gap between where we think we should be or want to be to where we are now. And even when you look at where you are now, you're not actually looking at what you have accomplished to get this far. You're basically comparing yourself with where you need to be or want to be in the future, or where you should be in the future, and lamenting and beating yourself up because you are so far from the mark of where you should be. You are living in the gap, where what we need to be doing is living in the game. So if we start looking at what have we accomplished so far? Yes, I'm not where I could be, but that's not where the journey has taken me. There are so many different steps in between where I am now to where I want to go that it would be so unfair to compare myself to where I want to be in the future. And those are the kind of conversations that we need to be having with ourselves. And instead looking at, this is where I am now. This is what I have accomplished so far. And if I want to move from here to there, these are the steps I need to take. And when you can look at those steps that are in between the gap where you feel you might be to the gain or the goal in the future, it gets a lot easier. And if you need help in setting out those goals, I've actually put together a goal getter generator, which is a free worksheet that you can download and get those steps out of your head, get those goals out of your head, first of all, and then get those steps out of your head in terms of what you need to do to get from here to there. So download the goal getter generator. And if you do, let me know how it works for you. Because when you are purposeful in looking at how you are going about your journey and what's needed, you can see the steps of where you need to go. And it's a lot better than sitting there looking at, I wish I was further along, or I should be further along. But when you have those steps in between and you can see what it is you need to do, it eliminates that whole gap and feeling of, I'm not good enough. I'm not there yet. I haven't achieved as much as I should have. And I haven't achieved as much as that person. That person is on a whole different journey. And that's another thing when it comes to looking at other people's journey and comparing ourselves to them, is even though it looks like this person may have surpassed you, oh, we started at the same time, or we were in school together and that person has done this and I haven't even got that far in my journey. They're two different journeys. We also have to consider that some of the struggles that that person may have gone through and overcome in order to get to where they are, we probably would never trade places if we knew what that person had to go through to get to where they are on their journey. We always think that our struggles are the most, and relatively they are. So it's very easy to compare ourselves to other people and we think, oh, look how far that person's gone. But we also need to take stock and think of, if I'm comparing myself to that person, would they have been able to overcome the things that I had to overcome in order to be here? And I'm here berating myself for not being further along. And would I really want to take on the issues that they may be facing that has gotten them where they are right now? And also, we may be looking at them as being further along. And that spirit of comparison shows up in so many different ways that the person, this has happened so many times, that the person that you're looking at and thinking, oh, they're so much ahead. Do you know that that same person could be looking at you many times, is looking at you and said, gosh, I wish I could do what you did. So we need to start eliminating that self-doubt, that comparison, that I wish I was or I should be, and taking inventory of what we're doing well and celebrating those small successes as we build on those stepping blocks and move forward and replicate the good work that we've already done. The fourth way, I don't think I've been counting, but anyway, the fourth way that imposter syndrome shows up is in perfectionism. And when you look at all of the other things that I've just spoken about in terms of self-doubt and comparing ourselves to other people, perfectionism perfectionism is one of those that holds us back, and it stems from stuff that started in our childhood. But as an adult, it can keep us paralyzed. That whole analysis of paralysis, where you sit there and you can't put your product out there. You don't want to launch your business because it's just not perfect yet. Someone's going to pick a hole in it. And sometimes there's nothing that we can pinpoint in terms of what's wrong with it, but we know that someone's going to look at it and it just can't be right because someone's going to come and they're going to see something that's wrong with it. It's just not perfect. What we're actually doing there is setting higher standards for ourselves than we would for other people. And I'm a victim of that as well. So I'm not sitting here saying that you might be the only person that's doing it. I've done that. There's so many times when I've looked at something where I'm working with a client on it and they've said, well, I can't send it out because, and when I look at it, there's nothing wrong with it. But then I know that if the tables were turned, I'd probably be looking at it as well and thinking, can I put that out there? Because maybe it isn't that good. Maybe it's missing something. What is it missing? And there's times when I've wanted to put something out there and I've looked at it like it's missing something. I'm not quite sure what it is. And the reason why I'm not quite sure what it is because you're literally trying to fabricate and think of what is somebody else going to say about it. So perfectionism, as much as it's about us wanting it to be perfect, it is that eagerness to please other people. And sometimes we're pleasing people that we don't even know who they are. We're trying to please this fictional person who we think is going to come out the woodwork and say, oh, got a mistake in that. And that's one of the other ways that imposter syndrome will show up. What all of those things do, unfortunately, is lead to a lot of anxiety and stress because you're sitting there, you've got your business that you want to work, you've got your product that you want to launch, and you're not launching it because you're worried about what it's going to look like. You're worried that people aren't going to take you seriously. You're worried that it's not quite good enough. It's not yet perfect enough. And who's going to criticize it? Is anyone going to buy it? Are they going to take me seriously because I'm calling myself a business owner, but I also have a boss? All of that anxiety and stress can lead you to press pause inadvertently on your business and stop you from taking the needed steps in order for it to grow. You can really find yourself in a vicious cycle where you want it to grow, but you're not doing the things needed to grow because you feel you're not good enough to do them yet. And then when it doesn't grow, you feel like a failure, but then you didn't do the steps that was needed for it to grow. A real catch-22 situation. And that emotional anxiety, if you think about it, you're in a 9-to-5 that is probably not the thing that you want to do until retirement, which is why you're watching this video. And then you've got the stress of trying to run and grow and build and develop a business, but then you've got the stress of it not working. And all of that combined can be really overwhelming. And what it does, because your business isn't growing the way you want it to, is you find it difficult to speak about your business. So when I ask you, what do? It's easier to speak about the 9-to-5 than that business that you are and were and want to be so passionate about. So what are the things that we can do to get over that imposter syndrome? And none of these are fixed by, just a blink and a mantra. It takes time. But one of the first things that you have to do is recognize that it is imposter syndrome. I remember years ago, I was having mentoring with one of my old managers, and he was somebody who came across as really confident. If he wanted to do something, it just seemed that, he had his finger in so many different pies and he was just getting on in the company and doing all these different things and being the first to bring in projects and all this different stuff in the company. And when I had mentoring with him, I was really floored because one of the things he said to me was, Rachel, every day I wake up, I wonder if this is the day that they are going to expose me as a fraud. And not a fraud in terms of I've been doing the wrong thing, but a fraud in terms of I'm just here in a way winging it and trying to make this work. And it was at that point, and I've spoken about this manager before, and if you've listened to my previous video about when I went to that job interview and it totally bombed, this is the same manager. But it was at that point that I realized that when you want to get something done, there are going to be so many doubts, there are going to be so many fears, but you just have to get it done. So when it comes to, I say, one of the first things that you have to do is recognize it as imposter syndrome. Right, you recognized it and it's there, but don't let it seep in. Recognize it. I see you. You are telling me that I'm an imposter, but I know I'm not. Let it wash over you and get to work. So you know your stuff. Remind yourself of the things you need to do so that you remind yourself that you are not an imposter, and then get to work. So wash over, get to work. The second thing you need to do is reframing. And that ties on to the first. All of these tie to each other anyway, because you're going to be doing it all together. So after you've identified it as imposter syndrome, the second thing you need to do is reframing. You are skilled. You are experienced. You are qualified in the field of whatever it is that you are putting forward as your business. Remind yourself of that. And reframing comes about with when those fears come up. You're feeling like an imposter. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of success. I'm not as far along as I think I should. Write those things down. Reframe them and read them back to yourself in the reframe positive way. So I'll give you a technique of one of the things that I've done over the years. And this is something that really helped me, especially in the initial stages of when I had just started coaching and I was still in my 9 to 5 and juggling the two. What I would do is I'll take 2 different colored ink pens. I didn't take red because I just thought it would stand out, because usually we use red for the negative, but I just thought even if it's a negative, it's going to jump out too much on the page. If you want to use that one, that's fine. But what I did was I used a blue and a green ink pen. And I would write down the negative thought that was keeping me stuck. For example, I'm not as far along as I should be. And then with the green ink pen, green means go, green means, get it moving. Come on, it's okay. That's what green stood out for me. I would write down the positive, reframed thought underneath. So for example, it might be, I am exactly where I need to be. I have the skills, experience, and talent to grow this business into the one I have planned, or something along those lines. And what you need to do is read through those. And when those negative thoughts come up, you go back to the positive reframed thoughts and read it to yourself, and read it to yourself until you believe it. Read that line until you understand it. And the words sometimes pop out in different ways, but you have to believe it and internalize it. And then you would work from that basis. And what you will find happening is when the negative thought pops up, either you go back to your notebook or remind yourself of that positive reframed thought, or that positive reframed thought is already there to slap it down. There are other things that you can do, and it might be reciting affirmations, having them printed, having them written down in notebooks. Some people might put them up on their mirror so that when you're getting up and getting ready in the morning, those affirmations are there. I've spoken about different things that I would do. I had a light next to my bed and I had these little heart-shaped post-its that someone had given to me. And I wrote some of the affirmations and positive statements down and I stuck them on the light. So at night when I was doing my reading, journaling, whatever I was doing or planning, the light's on and it's right there. I wake up in the morning and you turn over and those affirmations are right there in front of you. I also spoke about, and I still have it to this day, my alarm is an affirmation or mission statement that I wrote for myself. So when my alarm goes off in the morning, it starts with, I am da-da-da-da-da-da. It's my mission statement that I wrote for myself. Sometimes it's like, okay, I know it and I turn it off. And sometimes I would lie there and I would listen to it and snooze it again, or I listen to it a couple of times because I might need that reminder a few times that morning. So those are the little things that you can do to get yourself in that right frame of mind and start being on the attack when it comes to imposter syndrome. So number 3, you just need to get real sometimes. Literally just get real. So imposter syndrome shows up, as we said before, as not feeling that you're good enough, not feeling that you're worthy enough of that success, not feeling that you can go out there and promote this business because someone's going to come with, who do you think you are? And I found myself battling when it came to things like that. I am CBT trained, NLP trained. I went and got my coaching certificate and any other training that I could find to help me with my clients, I went to get. I was looking around with what else can I do? And I will still do training. However, I wanted to get everything done before I can say, oh, I'm a coach. And then you realize that It's not just the certificates that you hold, it's the experience that I've had. I've been working with people for over 20 years when it comes to how to change your life. And I had to really sit down and get real with myself in terms of, who am I trying to compare myself with? Nobody has the life experience that I have. Nobody has the exact same set of skills that I have. Nobody has the lived experience that I have. And then coupled with my certificates, why am I sitting here being quiet? So there are those times when you literally just have to kind of get real with yourself. What else are you looking for? Who are you trying to prove yourself to? You already have the skills, the experience to do this thing. Stop acting scared. Get real, get out there. So when it comes to you, what are your skills? What are your experience? Have you been doing this for so long? Do you have the track record behind you of people who can say, yes, Rachel has helped me do blah. If you've got that, why are you allowing other people to make you feel like an imposter? Why are you allowing yourself to downplay the skills and experience that you have and feel that you're not good enough when you know you are? People come for you for advice. People come to you for your product and service. They're bigging you up, and you're downplaying yourself. So there is a time when we have to kind of draw a line under it and get real. And number 4, one of the things that really does help in terms of looking at how far you've come on your journey, whether or not you are actually good enough at what you do, is not just writing down your skill set and your experiences and looking at that, but actively journaling what you're doing along the way. I spoke about earlier the gap and the gain. And many times we sit in that gap in terms of, what am I still missing? And we don't always look at, what have I gained so far? What have I achieved so far? And a good way of making sure that you never forget that and can always go back to it is journaling. So write down and keep track of your achievements so that when you need that reminder, when somebody may have made you feel like, oh, you're just in that little business, you can go back to my little business. This business is growing. This is what I've done. This is what I've achieved. These are how many people that I've helped so far. This is how it's going to surpass what I'm doing in my 9 to 5. So keeping track of what you're doing by journaling is a really good way of keeping that imposter syndrome at bay. I've spoken about my journey in so many different places. There's a video that I did a few weeks ago if you want to check that out, and it's called How I Changed My Life. 4 tips in moving from overwhelm to clarity. And I spoke about the different things that I did when I felt overwhelmed, when I felt really stuck, and the things that I did to make changes in terms of my mindset and how I felt about what I was doing in order to move forward. And, everything starts with mindset, and then it makes you feel a certain way. I don't feel good enough when you're comparing yourself to other people, and then it stops you, your behavior. It stops you from moving forward in your business. And then you don't move forward in your business, then it goes back to mindset. And I speak about in that video of the ways and practical changes that I made in my life to help me move forward. So they may help you. So after this video, go over there and check that one out. There's also 2 more practical things that you might want to do. And I say might want to do, but it's like a gentle nudge. You're going to want to do this, is really know your business inside out. This is something that you want to do. And whether it's a product or a service, it's coming from you. So know it inside out. So when you're asked, what do you do? If you know it, believe in your business, if you own it, then it will be easier for you to develop your elevator pitch. And this is what people would refer to as, if you're going between one floor to another and someone says, what do you do? And you're able to just reel off in a short space of time, like between one floor to another, what it is you do. When you are living, it feels like I'm promoting this book. When you are living in the gain, as in, this is what I'm doing, it's a lot easier to reel off what you're doing rather than if you're living in the gap. So many times the easiest thing to do would be to say, oh, and you speak about your 9 to 5. But when you truly own and believe in your business, then it's easier to reel off what it is you do. So when I'm asked what it is that I do now, I find it a lot easier to reel off and say that I am Rachel Charles. I'm a freedom mindset and life coach, and I work with women who have spent years investing their time and energy into their families and careers and are now ready to repurpose and refocus that energy into building businesses of their dreams. And I work with them to put plans and strategies in place so that they can start living a life that they design rather than the one prescribed. But it's a lot easier for me now to say exactly what it is I do in a business rather than having a conversation on my 9 to 5, which, yeah, I like it. I love it. It's not bad, but it's not the one that fills me up. The second thing that you really want to do is develop and know your why. And when you are very clear on why you are building this business, it becomes a lot more difficult for anybody. And I'm putting the onus on other people, maybe putting you off by saying, your little business, or you feeling that the business isn't working the way that you want to. But it becomes a lot harder for you to be put off, for you to feel not good enough when you understand why it is you want to have this business, in terms of what is it that you're bringing, what is it that you're offering, who are you serving, what is your market, how beneficial is your product, your service to people, what are the benefits that they are going to get by having this service. When you know that, and when you know your client inside out, when you know your worth in terms of what you are bringing to people, it is a lot harder to be knocked off your pedestal in terms of why your business is so important. It's a lot harder for you to shut up about your business. You find yourself speaking about it so much because you believe it and know that this is a business that you want to share. When you come across that person that you know that your product or service is good for, you will not be able to hide in the shadows. You will be visible. You will speak about your product. You will also find it a lot easier to show up on social media to speak about it, because if you're not out there and if you're not visible, then who knows you're there? So do you really have a business? So knowing your why really helps you to build that confidence so that you can go out there and promote your business. And it's no longer the side hustle. It's not sitting on the side of nowhere. This is the mains, baby. So when you know your why, and when you are armed with things like your elevator pitch, and when you know your purpose and why you're here, you're prepared for those questions that come your way, and it helps you to grow in confidence. But confidence comes as a result of preparation, practice, and a positive mindset. So if you want the confidence to come, you have to already be acting within that space. So I hope that this video was helpful in helping you to get on that armor when it comes to battling against things like imposter syndrome. It's something that I've had to battle with, and some days things will pop up and I might have to knock it back down and reframe it with something else, but you are not alone. And I hope that the points in this video really helps you, because it is not easy juggling a 9 to 5 and building a business, but I did a video about that. Have a look at a video I did sometime earlier on balancing your 9 to 5 and building a business, and that will give you some further tips on how to manage that balance without the overwhelm. And so until next time, bye.